So, good morning from sunny Guernsey, but not so sunny, pouring with rain. I know you were expecting to hear from Paul today. Well, you're going to hear from Paul, but Paul Welch has finally decided that he's going to use that well-known phrase of "we have two ears and one mouth," and it should be used in that proportion. So, we're going to have a chat about all things to do with Paul's activities and career and around borrowing and lending and finance. So, it's raining here in Guernsey. Wherever you are, I hope it's slightly more exotic. Paul, good morning.
Morning, Paul. This is going to be fun.
Yes, we were sea swimming yesterday and you said this might be a good idea. So I bet it feels a bit like a job interview, doesn't it? Because you don't quite know what's going to happen next.
No, I'm feeling a bit nervous, I have to say. It's, it's going to be fun.
Well, it's unlike you being nervous. It's Mr. Super Cool who actually does all sorts of things with microphones and cameras and things. But it is slightly different when actually you've given the microphone over to somebody else. So I hope you're going to be quite well behaved.
I'll try, Paul. I'm going to do my best.
Please be natural. Your natural personality will come through, I'm sure. They won't be nervous. No, but seriously. So we've got a little bit of time, and I think we're going to try and get another sea swim this afternoon if we get time, depending on how well this goes. If it doesn't go well, then you may be kicking me out. But why don't we kickstart? First of all, you made some quite significant changes to your life, both personal and business, just recently.
Yeah.
And I know this isn't what we're going to talk about, but I think for context, it'd be good because I've found your most recent journey interesting and also quite inspirational to actually see somebody deciding to make some significant changes within context for reasons. But nevertheless, it's a bit of a journey I think you're on. Are you prepared to share a little bit top line with us all?
Yeah, no, agreed. I wasn't prepared for that, so that's all good.
Well, look, I could ask the most embarrassing early sexual experiences you had as a teenager, if you want us to go different territories.
For our younger audience.
Okay, cool.
So, yes, I was in business 20 years, and for the first time ever, I relied on someone. And normally, when you're an entrepreneurial person, for want of a better word, you can be a bit of a control freak, for want of a better word, or you like to be in control of your own destiny and you want to control the controllables. But unfortunately, I was let down and someone let me down, sort of owing me kind of like a 500,000 kind of number. And then unfortunately, we were in the middle of converting our broking business into a lending business. We had funding lines arranged and we were good to go on that journey. But unfortunately, sometimes in life, circumstances don't work out as you planned. And when you're fully invested and, I lost a lot of money.
Was it a friend? Was it a close business contact?
It was a business relationship where, we looked after an individual for a number of years, but as one door closes, another opens. And for me, I don't think I would have survived like I have done and I am doing and I'm learning if it wasn't for my daughter's sort of illness previously.
Which in some ways you could have imagined might have been a problem to deal with because it was a significant illness, but her medical condition has actually galvanized you in many ways to reassess life around her. Was that whole letdown by that particular character, was that a bit of a straw that broke the camel's back? Were there other things going on? Were you feeling some aspect disquiet about perhaps the way your journey was going professionally, whatever, or was it out of the blue?
So if we get step one back, so for me, when my daughter was unwell, I really struggled. And, our child psychologist, who were part of the team around the child, said to me, Paul, you need to go and get some treatment. And he said, I don't want you to be on medication. You don't need medication. Go sea swimming. And I said, are you nuts? And he said, no, Paul, you will be nuts if you don't go sea swimming. And this was like probably December, January time. And I went in for about 15 seconds. I just had no idea how people could do it, get in there. And it certainly focuses your mind when it's January, December, cold, freezing cold in the water, freezing cold out. And then I discovered breathing, meditation, which when my daughter was unwell, to deep breathe, to turn the brain from being flight or fight mode into calm mode, kind of calms the inner self. So I kind of discovered Wim Hof, did a bit of breathing, managed to go in the sea, cleared my head, 15 seconds, 30 seconds. And some guy said, hey, wear a hat, retain the heat, 3 minutes, 10 minutes. And now if you said it's whatever it is, freezing cold temperatures, I can go up to 20 minutes, no problem at all. And those experiences gave me the strength and the character to deal with the last kind of 9 months.
Because that immersion, you feel differently, but you also think differently. The immersion into cold seawater, it's invigorating. And of course, as you walk away from it, nobody says, I wish I hadn't gone in there, it was too cold. Many people say, I don't want to go in there, it is too cold.
Yeah.
But immediately they've gone in. And then those first 90 seconds of acclimatization, as we both experience, then it becomes, enlightening, and it becomes enthralling. And there's lots of goodness that comes, you can feel coming from both yourself physically, but also mentally. And then as you come away, you say, that wasn't cold at all, that was wonderful. And yet the next time you go the next day, you'll say, I don't want to go in there, it's too cold. But actually, that's the journey of life, life, family, relationships, and indeed, professionally as well. Things are difficult, and they always look difficult. But once you get into them, and once you start tackling them and addressing them, then actually it becomes manageable, I think, doesn't it?
No, 100%. I think for me, when you've had people that have worked for you personally for nearly 20 years of their lives, and then to have to take the decision to close the business. I mean, yes, people lost money, but I was the largest creditor. And people forget that, and people don't really know the detail and the truth. And it was super difficult because for me, I feel kind of like relieved now, because you're not having to either generate income or pay in income of anywhere between 50 and 200,000. And for me, that's a month.
A month.
And then I was finding, money and keeping it going. I was selling assets. And it all unfortunately started to go wrong when Liz Truss did what she did. The mini budget kind of destroyed October, November, December in our business, where so many clients lost confidence in buying houses in the 5 to 20 million space because they didn't see a future in the UK for the longer term.
Paul, how ridiculous. Liz Truss couldn't possibly have made all of those adverse, negative, awful things happen. I saw her on TV trying to relaunch herself yet again.
Yeah.
Absolutely devoid of any understanding, comprehension of what that insanity did for her party, which will never be the same again, herself as a politician, although she seems to be, has decided she can reinvent herself. Staggering. And there are others in mainstream media and around politics in Westminster that seem to be saying, well, maybe it wasn't as bad. Yes, it was. Go and speak to the 68 million people of the United Kingdom, and the vast majority of them will be able to tell you horror stories of significant, and it was layer upon layer of difficulty. Brexit, 6 years of bad Brexit, a bad Brexit deal outcome. COVID, 3 years of COVID, death, carnage, life changes, how we work, how the workforce looks at things, the Ukrainian war, and then the whole issues with supply chain and cost of living increases, the bank's base rates moving from up to now 5.25% from 0.25%. And for me, along with Liz Truss, in the raft that we can set off to sea, we can put the Bank of England again, because what part have they played in actually looking to keep the British economy and financial system stable? They had one job, to hit a 2% annual inflation rate. Who says that has any real purpose or credibility? But nevertheless, that was the long-term deal that I think they and Brown agreed when they were given that authority. But they have been absolutely part of the problem, not part of the solution. So for me, I think when I hear things like Liz Truss and her actions,
that was the start.
Her actions, had impact for you and for many of your clients and for many of your other fellow professionals. Incalculably so. And one day I hope somebody sits down and writes a proper book about what the real impact is of these people, frankly, who are incompetent, a whole series of incompetence, which actually, it's Saturday morning. So we've got rid of all that. We've gone a little bit personal. We've deep dived a little bit personally into you. This is meant to be a psychotherapy, sort of self-help analysis session for you, Paul. But obviously your fans will be interested to hear a little bit more about you. But let's get to where you are now then. So, transition to your new journey. We're going to talk a little bit about finance, and there's a whole lot of mystery around finance for the layperson.
Yeah.
And I have to say, having worked as a director, a manager, a CEO, a board member, I've chaired things, a non-exec director. I have to say, I've known many CFOs and FDs who actually were pretty much financially innumerate. They're actually qualified and good at their job. And I have to accept, most CEOs actually don't give a tuppence about that detail. They're happy to rely on others. So there is a lot of mystery around financing, especially when it comes to lending. And of course, what people do, they very much want to rely on professionals. So whether that be lawyers, bankers, accountants, advisors, intermediaries and brokers and whatever. Should we break down some of the mystery then? Because
yeah, sure, whatever. I mean, I just step back one. So for me, the personal upset was failure, because so many people don't like that word or don't use the word. And I think our mindset in the UK is so different to America. So I'm very lucky that I have entrepreneurial people in America. And when you speak to them, it's Paul, what have you learned? What have you learned from the last 9 months? And they don't look at it as failure. They look at it as learning. And I think for me, in order to get where I am today, the last 3 months has been about focusing on positivity, mindset, visualization, doing things I've never done. So at the moment, I listen to Dr. Joe Dispenza about visualization of where you want to be in 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 9. So in terms of getting to where I am today, that's been critical. My wife is kind of simply make $1 million, lose $1 million, make $1 million, you'll be fine. So no grief, no aggro, no upset. So to have the support of the family has been critical. Father-in-law as well, helping out short-term cash flow. Because when you go from income to no income, and you have a mortgage and you have 3 children to feed, it's very easy to focus on the negativity of, oh gosh, how am I going to survive?
Sure.
Rather than thinking, okay, you've got 20 years of knowledge. And talking to my good friend Adam from Ace Creative in America, who was in the Mr. Beast video and stuff. And, when he was in London recently, he said, Paul, focus on what you've achieved. And like for us as a business, we did over 4.2 billion of mortgage lending in 20 years, multiple award winning. And it was unfortunately at the end, like my accountant said, you did 19 and a half years, fantastic. And you just made one decision with one person that didn't work out. Unfortunately.
Which has consequences.
Yeah, which unfortunately, everyone lost their jobs. I helped a number of them get new jobs and that was great. And I think today, the person that let me down, so to speak, has introduced me to some other opportunities, which if they come to fruition, will more than recompense for what I've lost. And I think for me, we wouldn't be sat here today with this little studio at home with cameras and lights if that hadn't happened. Because now I've got the bandwidth to invest and kind of like educate and entertain others moving forwards.
Perhaps we won't be too harsh on that person that let you down. No, only because they might be listening. And obviously, if they may become an ally and a friend again, then we won't sort of burn our bridges. But a couple of things you mentioned there, failure, and I won't say list because clearly that would be inappropriate, but so I'll say crap list. Oh, I have said list, so let's stay with.
We can edit that.
I have a list. So
crap list.
Things like synergy and strategy go into that list. Corporate speak that are words and concepts that far overused. And I think failure needs to go in as well from a business sense, because could you tell me one of the very successful people you know? And let's face it, over those 20 years, you've met very, very many, very high net worths, very successful people, both professionally. And do you know one of those that hasn't experienced significant failure in their business careers or in financial situations? The answer is, I'm not going to let you answer, is it will be inconceivable that you get to a very, very high level of success without having really hit, some rough times that could look like failure. And of course, failure is all relative as well, because as you said, 1 minute you have significant income into the business.
Yeah.
You have significant revenue, you have significant profitability, EBITDA generation, cash generation. Wonderful, you can invest and you can spend and you can distribute to shareholders and yourself. And the next minute, the circumstances change And it's not that you've failed and you're poor and destitute, but relatively speaking, it feels like utter failure compared to where you were, the sort of horse that you were riding at speed of running a big business and helping clients, doing deals, doing good deals and clever deals where both the lender and the borrower were really pleased. And that's quite an aphrodisiac in business when you're able to be involved in that. And that's a big part of what you do, is to link lenders and borrowers together in quite innovative ways. I think that's was very much part of how I understood your company that you formed and developed and people invested in was run. So I think, there is that piece about failure needs to be put into a bracket of, and we need to dismiss it or destigmatize it a little bit, because sport and business, and perhaps life as well, you need to have some failures or shortfalls or hiccups along the way, because then actually how to, you learn from it, as you were saying.
I think
before.
For me, I'd rather use the word learning or something similar to failure, because failure is so harsh. And I think for me, mentally and from a mindset perspective, you've got to find the positives and go again.
Yes.
And you've got to find that confidence and belief again.
Yeah. It's
because it's kind of like you are responsible for everything. When it's your company, it's yours.
And business at work is very transactional by its very nature.
Yeah.
It's very transactional. It becomes something more when, and we've all heard about values and cultures within businesses. And again, let's not get into the corporate speak.
Yeah.
But when there's something additional or nuanced or extra about the activity of an organization, so it isn't just the transactional making widgets, finance lending to high net worths, doesn't really matter. But if it's purely transactional, then the roots aren't very deep. Somehow what you really want to achieve in any organization is to actually, where the people within it and the people transacting with it actually feel that there's something they like dealing with that company, the people in that company, or they respect it or appreciate it.
That was the hardest.
Makes such a difference. I
think that was the hardest thing for me, because when we communicated to staff, I'd been really good all day. And then one couple phoned me up and said, "You've looked after us for 12 years. What are we going to do?" And then that was like, for me, at the end, I finished where I started. And that was kind of sleeping in the office, which if I hadn't have gone to see Mr. Beast in America, where most of the executive team had offices with beds, I wouldn't have even thought about doing that. But then the journey was a full circle, because when I started the business, I slept in the office. When I finished the business, which converted one of the meeting rooms into a bedroom so I could be there 24/7. And I did everything I possibly could to survive. And then my great friend and mentor, a guy called Lee Mole, he just said, "Paul, this is ridiculous." And then my wife at the same sort of time said, "Look, when is enough enough? Because at the end of the day, you end up actually risking your main home. You've sold properties, you've sold everything, and you're all in."
Yeah.
But then this couple phoned me up, said, "What are we going to do?" And I just broke down in tears. She was crying, this lady on the phone, that got me crying. And up until then, I hadn't cried at all. And then for about an hour, I was inconsolable. I could not get it together.
It's quite ironic, isn't it? Because at a time when the workforce of the world has decided working from home seems more attractive, I'm not sure it's actually the best thing for us all socially, but nevertheless, it's a big thing. Just as everybody was wanting to work from home, you got a cap that on the boardroom table and decided to, no, I mean, it was more the principle that at that juxtaposed position of everybody working from home rather than at the office, and there you find yourself for a must be in
6 weeks. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? And we'll talk about stakeholders. Stakeholders is one of the words that begin with S that I don't put into my crap list of synergy and strategy. But stakeholders, really important. And of course, that's fellow directors, that's shareholders, it's people that work within the company, clients, but also competitors and providers and suppliers. Have you managed to speak to or touch base with all of those people that you feel, I guess, that you've let down, in the sense that it was your job to lead the company, lead the organization? So whatever the rights or wrongs, you will be entitled to a little bit of misplaced guilt, I guess. I'm putting words in your mouth. However, knowing you how you are, you would want to try and make it right and as you said, you try to help some of your staff to to find new jobs, and you can do that by introducing them to other business colleagues. You can actually sort of act proactively in terms of trying to find them leads and opportunities. Do you feel that you've managed to actually touch base with all of them, either face to face or by with a call or a message, or are there any that you still hanker about wanting to be able to see, or almost just to let them know that you care about the implications for them from the problem that you had?
No, so yes, I did make contact with everyone, and as you say, I am trying to make good for those that lost the most. So there's suppliers that I've worked with for nearly 20 years, and we were in the middle of a server to cloud project, and that company was owed nearly £25,000. And what I'm trying to do with them, as an example, is they're an IT services provider, amazing company. I'm looking to generate content to promote their business and services. But for me, I have kind of like two angels, and I won't embarrass them. So we're called Angel J and Angel S. And those two angels gave me help when so many other people didn't. And
humbling moments, those things in a life of business. And
my life for the last 3 months could have been absolutely hell and horrendous. And when you live in Guernsey, you don't always have the same protections that you have in the UK. So if you have a mortgage in the UK, there's the mortgage charter,
yes,
which means if you have difficulties, you can have a payment holiday for 3 months, 6 months, 12. But everything here is so much more permission-based. And sometimes it's easier not to bother going through that process and the pain when you have 101 other things to deal with. So Angel J was unbelievable. It was a client that I've had for a number of years, visited Guernsey, and they sent me some money. Angel S has been the same, where we have a relationship and they didn't think that I deserved what had happened. And as a result, they helped me a little bit. And, there's one other person as well, actually, I call them Angel A. And they also helped me just cover some bills and deal with some slight credit arrears.
Sure.
To get through. And, that was August, middle of August. Friends of ours in the south of France said to go down and stay with them. My wife and children said that's probably the best holiday we've had for like 10 years, because I didn't have a phone call to say, you need 30 grand, you need 50,000. Because when you're trying to build a business, when you're entrepreneurial, it is 24/7 and it is relentless. And when you don't have money and you're trying to make money and you're trying to find money, it is virtually impossible. And it's massively, massively difficult. And you have to keep going. You have to keep believing.
Certainly, you find out a lot about yourself. And you mentioned a few times about learning and learning experiences. And of course, that's what makes us all become more successful or more competent and more capable. But it's a never-ending journey.
I think the biggest thing for me is that, we all set out to build a big company and we're going to sell it for millions and it's a dream. And that may be the case. And for some people that does happen. But the one thing I've learned now is that I never really paid myself properly throughout the process. So for any other entrepreneurs that are out there, make sure you pay yourself properly, take a salary, because you never know what can happen that is outside of your control.
Yes.
And family, friends, and health.
Yes.
I don't really watch the news anymore, and I haven't done for a very long time, since the last 3 years with my daughter experiences.
And you've distanced yourself from alcohol, only in the sense that
didn't agree with me.
Well, didn't agree with you, but also just almost part of that health and wellness.
Yeah. No.
The sea swimming. I know you've changed your kind of, when say your eating habits, you're just trying to be healthier.
You feel better.
And looking after your wellness and health, because that helps then to be more proactive and positive and feeling good.
I probably feel the best I ever have done. And I think it's kind of like, as you grow up,
am I supposed to say, it looks that way? It's just, I don't know whether or not anybody watching us is thinking this is factual as opposed to fantasy or fiction. That's all. No, but seriously, your health, your appearance has changed. I mean, you were looking incredibly stressed and of course,
I mean, yeah,
that happens when you're dealing with difficult problems.
The interesting thing is I've just had my blood test results come back and I was high cholesterol, high this, high that. And it's interesting how cortisol, when it's in your body, gets processed and you have high cholesterol and all these things. Now that I've kind of stopped and I don't have that pressure, responsibility to deliver every single month, all my blood tests are completely normal.
Yes.
So I'm going to the doctor on Monday and they're going to say, what have you done? What's happened?
Yes.
Well,
this reevaluation of what's really important, is the commuter train, the relentless commuter train of all of those things that you have to do to make sure a business is able to function, be viable, survive. And of course, cash flow and cash flow management, working capital, doesn't matter what business you're in, but those things have become even more important. We touched earlier on some of the dynamics that can happen to economies and financial markets when governments aren't in a good place, which we've seen over this last few years and certainly this last year. But of course, it is a relentless pressure. It really is. And I think the point I made earlier is if organizations can have something more to them than just the transactional bit of buy things, sell things, all the rest of it, I think that's good for the workforce. It's good for those people that engage with the company. It needs to happen more.
No,
this has been a sad old decade. I think when the history books are written, I think there's a lot of very bad lessons, bad outcomes, bad happenings in the last 10 years at many different levels.
I think leadership is very lacking. I think from politicians and governments, and I don't blame any uber successful business people to not get involved in politics, but I think for me, things need to change.
Well, the 8 billion, I think, is 8 billion now. The 8 billion people on this planet, they desperately, desperately need to see some better leadership. And I mean that in the most general terms, at all levels, government, but also big businesses and very wealthy people also need, we're not talking about some kind of utopian or socialist kind of strategy. We're just talking about those that can do things to make the people that live on this planet, have a better life. Makes some sense. I remember, I don't know, we're here to talk about you, but I remember with one of the companies that I was running.
This is really funny because you said to me about 2 ears of one mouth.
Yeah, it is very funny, isn't it? But I've had more experience and I'm misusing that ratio. No, but just to make the point, because I think I hope people would see it. Annual pay reviews for workforces, they're all very interesting, and usually in a very basic way, it's X%, 2%, 3%, 5%, whatever it might be. I said to the senior, the executive board in this business, I said, look, we talk about not having people paid at minimum wage level, certainly not below minimum wage level, but we've got a whole range of job roles. And we know, so let's just say that £22,000 a year is the minimum wage. Let's just say that here in Guernsey, the median wage is 36,000 roughly.
That's a lot.
In Guernsey,
yeah.
In Guernsey,
23% of people here earn 23,000 a year. I was amazed.
Okay, for the median,
a little bit high.
For the median wage is actually because it's counted by those people on high incomes. Anyway, my point was being, if an RPI increase, a pay increase, if that's how you want to describe it as it's been, is meant to cover cornflakes and petrol and utility costs going up by inflation. If you're on £100,000 and you receive a 3% increase, that's £3,000. If you're on a median wage of 35,000 and you get a 3% increase, that's £900 odd. And if you're on let's call it the £20,000, you get £600. So those people that are on very, very low incomes, where you need both parents of a family to be working simply to be able to survive, I imagine, to be able to find somewhere to live, £600, £900 median wage, 3,000. You can't be telling me that the people on 100,000 a year really need 3,000 to cover the cost of the inflation of their cornflakes. And the answer is you don't. So I suggested to this team, why don't we not give percentage increases to everybody? Why don't we agree what the pot is that the business can afford and then give a flat increase? Because if you could give the low income person that's entitled to £600 double or treble that, then that's going to lift them over a period of years. And yes, there might be a bit of a distortion about then pay bands between different job types. But look, if you're on a mid job and you're earning mid money, you surely can't resent if the people on the very lowest levels are actually starting to be paid more, closing the gap with them, but they can then survive. Surely. And the people that are on £100,000 a year, they don't need the £600, let alone the £3,000, because life's a bit kinder to them. Now, I can tell you, there were 6 of us, and the vote was 5-1, and we never voted about anything. I was the one because I proposed it. And the other 5, really good people, they just didn't like the idea of that at all. They thought it was kind of reckless and dangerous. And I thought to myself, I'm gonna bring back this approach, because I think there's something in it. Because we shouldn't be wanting people to just be above a minimum wage, whatever that is. In the third world, minimum wage is like €0.50 a day, a week, and obviously here in the Western world and the UK. So there's some relativity and differentials, but we've got to be doing some things to actually give a little bit more balance and fairness around the system.